Barry Vaudrin here. I wanted to tell you a story about this artifact that I found while I was on my walk. I walk every day about 4, 5, 6 miles, and during my walk I saw in this woman's yard in front of her house, she had a flagpole, and then she had these rocks surrounding the flagpole. And one of the rocks looked very interesting to me, and it caught my eye. Every time I went by it, I went and looked at it and examined it. And this is that piece of rock right here. I got permission from the homeowner to carefully remove the artifact and bring it to my place to study the object. I was very cautious about removing the piece because I didn't want to damage it. Fortunately, the piece was not buried too deep and was fairly easy to remove. I placed another stone where the wood artifact was to temporarily cover the spot. So, after examining this in the woman's yard, in her little rock garden, I came to the conclusion that it was actually petrified wood. This is an actual piece of petrified wood. And it weighs maybe about 50 pounds right now. As a piece of wood, it wouldn't have weighed that much. But let me tell you a little bit about how wood becomes petrified. What our scientists and geologists today say is that it takes about 3 million years minimum for a piece of wood to become completely petrified. And what that means is that the wood actually transformed over thousands and thousands and thousands of years into actual rock. And the way that happens is the wood is buried in sediment, in sedimentary layers, and it is blocked from oxygen, and it is compacted, and it gets stuck in these strata of rock layers. And over the years, what happens is the minerals of the rocks around the piece of wood interact with the wood, and over many, many, many thousands of years, they say millions of years, the wood composition actually takes on the elements and the minerals from the rocks around it, and it becomes stone. And that's what has happened with this piece here, this piece of wood. It actually was a piece of wood that has become rock hard. It is solid rock right now. The one thing that is unique about this is not that it's just a piece of petrified wood, but my theory and my hypothesis is that this was actually hewn by man before it became petrified. And the reason I say that is because on the end here, it's completely flat, like it was cut, like it was sawed. And then the same with the other end here was chopped or cut so that it's a straight cut. So it wasn't like in a catastrophic event. This piece of wood wasn't just broken. It was actually cut. And then after it was cut, it somehow got buried in sediment, and it became petrified over many, many years. Now, the evolutionary geologists would say that it would take 3-4 million years for a piece of wood to become stone like this, to become petrified. But I'm wanting to take this from a biblical worldview, considering what happened in Genesis, that this piece of wood was actually a piece of pre-flood wood. So this piece of wood existed before the flood of Noah, biblically speaking. And during the chaos, during the flood, this piece of wood was buried under many, many layers of sediment and rock and dirt and sand, and compressed. And then without oxygen, this piece of wood absorbed the minerals around it over millions of years, or many thousands of years, and it eventually transformed into stone. So, because it is hard as stone right now, and if you look at this, you can see that obviously it is a piece of wood. And my thoughts about this piece of wood are that it may have been cut to be used possibly as firewood or something like that, because there's no there's no specific design to the cuts in this. It's just cut here and here, and then cut in half. So it's like you had a block of wood and actually chopped it in half, and that's why it's so flat on the bottom like this, because it was chopped in half. But it was also cut here and here. So my hypothesis from a biblical worldview is that this piece of wood existed before the flood of Noah, and during the flood of Noah, the chaos that came on the earth during that time buried this piece of wood, and it, over the many thousands of years, became transformed. It was a metamorphosis from wood to stone, to rock. In fact, you can still see on the very end, you can still see even rings in the wood. You know, like a tree has rings. You can actually see those rings in this piece here. So here's the story. Apparently, now I found this in Bloomington, Minnesota, in a woman's yard out in front of her house. And I originally thought, wow, this is really amazing to see a piece of petrified wood like this in Minnesota. Because where would it have come from? How would it have become petrified? But the woman who lives in the house that owns this, this rock or this petrified piece, she later told me or remembered that they were on a family trip. Her and her husband and her kids were on a trip to Bar Harbor, Maine, many years ago, and her husband found this wood sticking out of the sand on the beach in Bar Harbor, Maine. And he was so intrigued by it that he took it home with him all the way back to Minnesota. And apparently his children kind of teased him about it because, why would you want to carry this thing, all the way back to Minnesota? But it really is interesting that he did, because now we have this piece of petrified wood that we can look at today. Now, because it was found on the beach in Bar Harbor, Maine, there is no telling where this piece of wood came from. It's hard to say. It could have come from the area many thousands and thousands of years ago. Of course, this is pre-flood again, what I'm thinking. And it was buried in sediment, and it could have been transported through the Ice Age. The Ice Age covered much of North America, and so pieces of wood like this, or pieces of petrified items like this, would have been encased in the glaciers from the Ice Age, and then deposited over the Atlantic or over Bar Harbor, Maine area. Because the Bar Harbor, Maine area, geologically, many, many thousands of years ago, the speculation was that it was a volcanic area, and that there was a lot of volcanic activity, which could have been one of the reasons this became buried from volcanic activity. And it was deposited and eventually washed up on the beach in Bar Harbor, Maine, on the Atlantic. So what's really intriguing about this piece of wood, petrified wood, is that I believe it was cut by man before the flood. And the reason that is because this wouldn't have been able to be cut like this after it was petrified. So it was cut, and then it became buried, and it was petrified the way it is today. And it is an observable artifact of humans living in the early days before Noah. And I just think it's very, very intriguing. So that's my story with this piece of wood, this petrified wood, which is now hard as rock. And I thought it was fascinating enough to do a little mini documentary about this and to show my friends and people that follow me online what I've discovered here. And I'm also very interested in what your thoughts are of this piece of petrified wood. So if you have any theories of your own, or if you have a hypothesis, or whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to see those thoughts in the comments below. Go ahead and comment on this video below what your thoughts are about this artifact, which I believe is petrified rock, petrified wood turned into rock. That's all I got. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments.